Hey, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, your host, fresh off the financial workshop from last night. Good time was had by all. We'll talk about that in just a second. I do want to let you know that tomorrow morning I'm going to be on the radio at 7 o'clock, not 8 o'clock, WCRF in Cleveland, 103.3. It's Moody Radio, so you can get their app and you can listen anywhere. Like if you have Starlink, you can listen in the middle of the jungle. We're going to the middle of the jungle, and we will be doing the show from the middle of the jungle. So look forward to that. 1-800-344-2534. If you have questions, you just scroll them right down here. And questions can be emailed or sent. You can call and ask Corey to write it down. She'll give it to me. Corey at epsf.com. Now, our site for the mission strips, just want to make sure we always mention this, nativosusa.org. You can give directly on that website. And the administration for the money that we receive is extremely small. It's like 95% of the money goes to the actual mission. Sometimes you give to a charity and they're giving 15% actually goes to the mission. Well, I don't want to give to that. I want to give to the mission. That's what I want to do. So we had the financial workshop last night, and I really appreciate people making time to come out. It means a lot to me that they did that. And I probably shared for a little bit over an hour. I could have talked till midnight, but I kept it to an hour and some change. Took questions. I got to meet a lot of people. I didn't meet everybody, but I do sincerely appreciate you coming out. That you would make time to do that. It was good to meet everybody. I really liked it. So we're going to do one. I kind of raise money for the mission trip because we do take people that can't necessarily afford to go, like pastors, worship leaders, their families. And so I want to help them out in getting there. And we do need to take people because we have to do the work. And there's children's church activities that go on and mission activity with the people of the village, classes, things like that. It takes people to teach those. And so we bring some of the people and a lot of the money. So that's what we did. We raised money for that. We're going in June this year. We'll probably go somewhere around the same time next year. If you want to go, let me know. A few people at the workshop last night were interested in going, and we want to take you. You don't need to lift heavy things if you go. Doesn't hurt if you can, but you don't have to. So let's get to the markets. Since I spoke to you last, a lot has happened. Over this past weekend, Israel was attacked by a sovereign nation. Iran, directly from inside of Iran. And this does mean something in relation to how serious the attack is, even though I'm pretty sure that nobody got killed in Israel. I'm fairly certain that this attack resulted in no loss of life. I did read that one person was hurt and they were in serious condition, but I don't know what happened to them or if they're out of the hospital yet. But they've been attacked. Israel has been attacked by a sovereign nation. In the past, what Iran would do, and they've been doing this for 30 years, they use Hamas. They use other proxy. They fire missiles from other places, Northern Africa, into Israel, but never directly from Iran. And what this is a major escalation. And Israel should be free to do what they want to defend themselves. And, the funny thing is that our administration right now, the Biden administration, Anthony Blinken at the State Department, they're creating pressure to keep the response what they consider to be reasonable. And this is one of the problems that the Biden administration is running into, is that under the Obama-Biden administration from 2008, they were for 8 years, they had an active campaign against Bibi Netanyahu to get him out of power. And it worked against them because Bibi Netanyahu is the prime minister. So he doesn't really care what the Biden administration has to say. They're not acting in his best interest. And he's at a politically tenuous point right now where he could use the situation really to bolster his leadership. And my guess is that's what he's going to do. Now, here's what I think. And by the way, this whole thing, the Hamas situation with Israel, Iran with Israel, Ukraine and Russia is a catastrophic foreign policy failure on our part, which has an effect on your finances. Because if Israel attacks, and they're going to respond to this attack, they have to respond to this attack. So I'm operating under the assumption that Israel is going to respond. And I think because there was no loss of life in Israel, they're not going to bomb a city center in Iran. And what they're going to do most likely is take out some material. And the thing that Iran makes the most money off of, what is it? I'll wait for a second. I'll give you a chance to answer it. Screaming out loud in your car if you're listening, or your computer at work. Yeah, you're right. It's oil. They make money off of oil. Well, they make money from us, too, because we tend to ship them pallets full of cash. That's what the Biden administration did. They sent them $16 billion of pallets of cash. And they didn't expect them to use it towards terrorism. And that's exactly what happened. They're our devout enemy, the devout enemy who their mission is to eliminate the nation of Israel. That's their stated mission and goal. And so, of course, they're going to use that $16 billion of cash to fund terrorism. And we haven't really backed up or enforced the oil sanctions. We've given them, our administration has given Iran $200 billion in the last 3 years. So, lo and behold, they use it for terrorism. They attack Israel. Israel's going to attack them. And I think they're going to take out oil infrastructure. I think that's what's going to happen. And when they do that, you're going to see the price of oil skyrocket. And you're going to see interest rates probably go up because there's going to be a lot of tension on the world stage, and that's important. That makes a difference. And when that happens, you're going to see inflation go up. Do you see now how geopolitics affect our dollar, our money, the price of things that we buy? Everything that you use on a daily basis probably has some oil in it. I loved it when the CEO of Patagonia, this high-end camping store that charges you way too much for a jacket, they want to end the use of oil and fossil fuels. Well, their jackets are made from oil. I don't know if you knew that or not, if you took the time to realize what they did. Another catastrophic failure is just the Ukraine. We're going to vote on a Ukraine aid bill. Speaker Johnson, Republican, went into the SCIF. It's this secret area where the CIA and the FBI share secret documents with you. You can't take them out. And I think really what happens, and he came out of the SCIF and he was a supporter of Ukraine aid, where he wasn't when he went in. So I think really what happens in the SCIF is they show you the blackmail that they have on you, and then you come out as a supporter of whatever the intelligence community, they call them the IC, whatever the IC wants. All of a sudden, you know what they're going to blackmail you with. And so now he's a supporter. I think Trump came out with a plan the other day to loan money to Ukraine. Now, and this sounds great. But what happens is Trump is out of power, the loans come due, and the next administration just forgives them. So they're never going to pay that money back. Nobody ever pays us back. We pay other people back. So 2 tremendous catastrophic failures of foreign policy are unfolding in front of our eyes, and we're going to see what happens to the geopolitics and our economy based on those things. But I know this. When Trump was in power, none of this happened. It didn't happen until Joe Biden was in power, and then it all happened. Coincidence? I think not. The other thing about the economy is Chair Powell has been speaking, and I know you know I just said that wrong. It's really pronounced Chair Powell has been speaking, and he confirmed what you already knew. And you knew it because I told you this starting in November of last year, that he should have raised rates in December. We know that now. They're trying to thread this proverbial needle economically, and for a while we thought, well, maybe he did it. And I got to tell you, I don't like to be the harbinger of bad news, and I don't want to see bad things happen. But I think you're seeing inflation accelerate again, and these pundits in the market who were saying 6 or 7 rate cuts, well, you knew that wasn't going to happen because I told you that. I said maybe 2 or 3, and then I said maybe none, and I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think there's going to be a rate cut this year. Now, there's still people talking about 2 or 3 rate cuts this year, but my guess is on none. And I don't think they're going to cut rates until 2025. maybe not even until after the first quarter. Inflation is here. We've seen it accelerate. January, February, March, April. We had a jobs report that looked good, but it wasn't good. 300,000 jobs got created, 100,000 of them were government jobs. And in that jobs report, we actually lost 6,000 full-time positions. So the rest were part-time jobs. That's not a good report. That's not what you want to see. You know, I'm not always right. I'll admit that. I'm right only about 97.2% of the time. And I was right about this one. So what Chair Powell said was rates are going to be higher for longer. And the rate cuts were not, we were talking about when. Now we're not talking about when, we're talking about if. And I'm telling you, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think they're cutting rates. I don't think they can afford to cut rates. If they cut rates now, I think you get a re-acceleration of inflation that's already kind of embedded. Some of those labor contracts that happened in the midst of inflation were pretty high. Well, that's embedding the price hikes into the economy. Those aren't going away. And the administration said the other day, well, I don't know why people are angry. Inflation's coming down. No, it's not. It's not coming down. The rate of growth is slowing a little bit, but inflation is still out of control. It's really, true calculation measures, probably about 5.5%. That's way too high, way too high. And that's not even accounting for increases in rent or mortgages. If you include rent and mortgage increases, it's probably closer to 6.25%. That's a lot. Ask anybody trying to rent an apartment right now what they're paying. You'd be surprised. It's cheaper to own a house if you can find one. So I want to get to one listener question because it applies to this today, and that is, what does the Federal Reserve do? We have talked about the Federal Reserve. I said at the workshop last night, I feel like I've talked about them ad nauseum. I'm sick of the Federal Reserve. Chair Powell messed up. It's just that simple. But what does the Federal Reserve do? They have two missions. Full employment. They want to keep Americans working. Okay? We used to consider 5% unemployment full employment. We don't anymore. It's probably 3.85% or 3.5% is full employment. And then price stability, which means manageable inflation or low inflation. We consider 2% inflation to be acceptable. And there's some reasons for that. It's kind of the grease that keeps the economy going. It's better than deflation. And it's what keeps the real estate market moving because your house inflates at 2% a year. So you live in it for 10 years and it's worth a lot more. You feel like you made some money off of it. And maybe you have, but you're going to make some money just through inflation alone. So that keeps transactions happening. Okay, so I like that. But how do they do that? They control interest rates, short-term interest rates, loans to overnight loans to banks. That's what they control. That's the interest rate that they control. It's a 24-hour interest rate, but off of that one interest rate, everything is based. So if a bank banks make money being loaned out. They don't keep your money in a vault. They keep the money flowing. So you deposit money, they take that money, they do car loans, home equity loans, college loans, all these different loans. That's where their profit margin is for a bank. And if they don't have enough money at the Fed overnight, they got to take a loan from the Fed. Well, the loan from the Fed is 5.5% or whatever it is, the Fed funds rate. Fed funds rate. I knew it sounded like Elmer Fudd there for a second. Fed funds rate. Well, if they're loaning at 8%, well, they'll take those loans all day long because they're making money off of it. So that's what the Fed controls. And if they want to increase business activity, they lower rates. You're more likely to buy a car when the interest rates are at 1% than when they're at 9%. So they increase business. When they want to slow markets down, they raise rates, this overnight funds rate. And then you're much less likely to buy a car when they're at 9% versus 1%. So you see, that's how they kind of keep the economy moving. And they have a lot of measures that they follow. The Fed was founded in 1913 to kind of smooth out these boom and bust cycles. I don't know about you, but I've seen some pretty big boom and bust cycles in the last 25 years. I think of 2000, 2008, 2013. The pandemic was kind of another thing. We've seen some pretty big boom and bust cycles. I don't know that the Fed has really helped. And actually, I think they've made some problems even worse. Now, here's how I think of, when you take your kids bowling when they're little kids and It's no fun if you roll a gutter ball every time, so they put those guards up. And kids have a little bit of fun. I kind of look at the Fed like that. They're probably keeping us out of a Great Depression, although they were around for the Great Depression too. But I think what they've done is they've mission creeped. And now they're all about New Green Deal and sustainability and DEI and ESG and all those things, taking their eye off the ball, doing all these other biddings of an administration that is all about the New Green Deal and making sure that your energy is super expensive. That's the job of our government right now. And I think the Fed has gotten caught up in some of that stuff, and they've missed it on inflation because they gave the administration a pass, and now they're going to pay the price. So this particular Fed hasn't been as effective at price stability as other Feds have been. Alan Greenspan did a good job. You know, he had that irrational exuberance phrase that cost the market, 15%. And Janet Yellen, when she first came in her first press conference, there's a pretty steep learning curve to being a Fed chairperson. Somebody said, "Do you think biotech stocks are too pricey?" And she said, "Yes, I do." And she solved that problem for biotech stocks for about a year. They were not overpriced after she made those comments. In fact, they were a good buy. I think this Fed has just kind of lost its way a little bit. The Biden administration came in. They wanted to spend a lot of money. So if the Fed raises rates into that, they really make that spend that the Biden administration did on Build Back Better. Nothing's been built, nothing's back, nothing's better. They would have been taking money out of the economy while the Biden administration is putting money in. So they, it was like two opposing forces, and they gave the Biden administration a pass, and that was a mistake. And they made a political mistake. They should have done the right thing and started raising interest rates. They couldn't do it. They couldn't pull it off. They couldn't get themselves to do it. And now this is where we're at. Because when you have 9% inflation, it's easy to go from 9 to 5. It's that last 3 or 4% that we're in right now that is really difficult because those things are in. It's the only way the Fed gets us out of this now is to drive us into a recession. That's what's going to have to happen. I don't know if they have the guts to do that. Because the other thing that has to happen is government has to stop spending so much money. And when they do that in a hurry, if we put our government on austerity like we did to Greece in 2013, you're going to be in a recession. And we found that out about Greece, and so we did away with the austerity plan. And we said, we've got the solution. Your 30-year bonds, they're no longer 30-year bonds. They're now 100-year bonds. And Greece said, that's a great idea. Okay. And bondholders got their heads handed to them in a basket. I don't think we could do that. I don't think that we could change the terms of that debt like that. So we're going to have to stop spending money. We're going to have to start paring back the budget in a meaningful way, but not too meaningful. And so it's going to, the next president, I think, is going to be Donald Trump. A lot of people aren't going to be satisfied with the cuts he's going to make because you got to be careful how you do this. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight. A lot of things going on right now, a lot of moving parts. We'll be back with you next week, and we'll update you on the Israel, Iran, Hamas, Syria situation. That's going to be a big controller because oil prices you could see the price of oil go from $85 a barrel to $125 overnight, given the right circumstances. I am David Safransky, a real American, a true red-blooded patriot, and the voice you can trust.